Welcome in, everybody. Let's see if I can share my screen.
Got it.
How's that? Does that work for everybody?
Yes.
Well, we are so excited that we finally have grants out the door, and you guys are able to be with us and go on this journey as we make the most of the 250th anniversary of the American Revolution here in South Carolina, and take and have an impact on the cultural tourism and education into the future. You should have all received at least 80% of your grant through your fiscal agent. And is that correct? Does anybody not have received any of their funds? Anybody who's still waiting on funds to arrive?
Good.
Okay, good, excellent. So we're glad to hear that. So now we're spending the people's money. So we want to make sure we make the most of it and be as transparent as possible. You all know this, but because it is the people's money, it does mean there are things that are required. Unfortunately, there may have been some naughty folks along the years, and we want to. That means a lot of paperwork is involved with state funding, and I apologize in advance for that. And I want to help you as much as possible get this these final reports done, and we will be sending you this by an email. I'll send a follow-up email to everybody. But these are the dates, target dates that we're looking at. Status report will be due no later than November the 15th. You should receive an email update from us reminding you of that. And this is just kind of where are you now? What's happening at this point? If you haven't, things that if you're completely done with your project, instead of a status report, you can go ahead and submit a final report November 15th. But I know a lot of you have things that are coming up later in the year or still in progress. So this would just be like where we are now. This will be required to be completed by you. The next one is a site visit. This is just so we stay connected. We are so excited that the state legislature has agreed that the commission can have 4 full-time employees. In addition to our executive director and myself, the coordinator, we're adding on a grants coordinator and a site development personnel. So one of those 4 people or some of the commissioners, Bill Davies probably will come visit with you guys at some point. Anytime we come to visit, we just want to document kind of where you guys are at with your projects, and that's just simply so we stay connected and communicate. And that will be completed by us. The final report, including financial receipts, will be due no later than May 15th. And if you have a challenge of getting it done by then, it's again all about communication, and we're going to talk a little bit about making changes to timelines and things. But that is our goal. This makes sure we, by statute, we have to have an update no later than June the 13th. So this gives us some time to make sure we have documentations in place. If you need to roll over your funds to a new fiscal year, that is doable. We just need to make sure that we are communicating about that in plenty of time to make that adjustment in the system. Any questions about that before I move forward? Okay, awesome. All right. So as I said, the status reports do have to be completed within the Web Grants program. I'm going to do a demo for you in just a few minutes. It's pretty simple, but just a couple steps, and I'm going to send you a step-by-step on how to do it. If you have any questions or forget after we do the webinar today, you can have that to go step-by-step to complete it. This is the same location where you went in and signed your contract for your agreement. It's just the next component down is the status report. And the one after that is the contract amendments. This is where if you get into studying your contract with a consultant and it's going to end up being more money for the consultant, so you need to move your budget around. You can, if you just need to change 10% of your budget around so it's allocated a little differently, that's fine. You don't have to tell me that. Once we get past 10% of changing where the money is going in your budget, then you need to reach out to us. It's going to 9 times out of 10 be no problem whatsoever. I just need to document that in the system and make sure we're tracking that so our final report matches up with what we have in the system. They will be taking a look at that as if they do some spot audits. So this is just talk to us first. This especially relates to that final report. If your project needs to extend past the fiscal year, you'll definitely need to put in a contract amendment request. And this is, again, should not be a problem, but I just need to document it in the system and adjust the dates that we have in the system for you. And here's the biggie, save your receipts. It is state funding. They are going to be looking for receipts for everything that you spend money on at the end of the day. So when that final report is submitted, you'll need to scan and upload any receipts, paid bills, things like that. We'll also, if you have, I did want to mention, if you have part of your budget is administrative, meaning that some of your paid staff is going to get paid with funding from this grant. If you have a little bit that we allow, I think 10% overhead. Then if that is part of your budget, most of y'all it's not, but if it is part of your budget, we will have to have some documentation of that, of their pay as part of your receipts. And I will have a form that you can fill out if that is the case. And just please let me know if that is, if you have any questions about that, and I'll make sure to send you that form as well when I do the follow-up email with everybody. And the next section we want to talk about is procurement. We initially had some understandings, and I will apologize because it was my misunderstanding that with state funds, you have to follow the state procurement.
I just heard he called you or something.
Yeah, so can y'all hear me? Yeah, so with this, we have gotten some clarification on this, and all grants, the grants do not fall under procurement. However, it is, go ahead. Is there a question? I'm sorry. I thought I was hearing somebody, I'm sorry. So you do have to follow your own entity's procurement policy. Most counties have a similar procurement policy to the state. So if you have your own, of course, we're asking you to follow that policy. If you do not have a procurement policy, we have some best practices that follow state procurement that are listed on our website. And if you have any questions about that, I can walk you through that. We, of course, as I said, we're using the people's money. We want to be as transparent as possible. Most of the value of these grants that you all have received are under $10,000, so they would not even fall under state procurement if you were having to follow it. But if you have any questions about it, just let me know, and we can go into specifics at the end if you have questions about that. Now, some of you, if your fiscal agent is not a county or city for your organizing grant, or if you have a competitive grant, you received 80% of the total grant up front, and the final 20% will be sent to you with final paperwork, including those receipts. So it will be a reimbursement of that last 20%. However, if that, I know a lot of your committee organizations are set up where you guys don't have any funding at all. So if this would keep the project from moving forward, we can discuss this and come up with some documentation on contracts and things that would allow us to go ahead and send that last 20%. However, I would encourage everyone to structure your agreements with your contractors, with your consultants, saying, you know, you're going to get this final percent payment after I get all my paperwork completed and sent in to the SC250. And then the exciting part is that you can now copy your application with all of those fiscal agent attachments that you had to come up with and turn this into another grant. We have quite a few that have launched yesterday. We now have 9 grant programs with SC250. We were very graciously received over $7 million in funding this year from the state legislature. And that a lot of those will go towards projects specifically that the commission is doing, but a lot of that will go into these grants. So we're excited about it. We know that some of these sites creating these new pull-offs will take the bulk of that money. But there's a lot of opportunity here, especially you guys are ahead of the curve. You've already got your information in the system. It's a simple copy your application situation, and I'll show you in the demo in just a moment. Okay. And then, of course, we want to make sure we're communicating. That's the biggest thing. You please watch those emails that come from SCPRT grants, that email, or from me. A lot of them come, though, through the SCPRT grants system. I know there are a lot of them sometimes. Please, though, watch them because that's a good way for us to communicate with you and have it documented in the grant program. We want to also help you succeed. How can we help you do that? And how can you guys help us make this process go more smoothly? We know this is our first time doing issuing grants, so there are going to be some things we have questions about, and you guys can help us be better at doing this and getting this work done and making a difference with our anniversary that's here. So with that said, any questions before I go into the demo? Hi, everybody. Does anybody have any questions before we start the demo?
Hi.
Hi,
Hello.
Karen. How are
I'm
you?
sorry I'm a little bit late.
No, you're fine.
I don't know if you covered this part of it yet, but we have co-chairs. We have 2 chairs, and they're on the meeting with us. How can I include them? That is Juanita Campbell and I'm sorry, Judge Roderick Thompson.
Hi,
So
ladies.
how can I add
Absolutely.
them to our grant?
Yes.
Personally.
So what I'd love for you guys to do who are not registered yet with web grants is go ahead and register on that site. And then once I have you added to the site, I'll add you to the commission as the organization. And then that will allow me to make sure we communicate that way. So I think I can still do that even though the application is submitted that way. But that way you're at least in the system going forward.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Anybody else? Yeah. I'm sorry, I can't hear you again. I'm so sorry. That's our bane of our existence since the pandemic, right? You're on mute.
You can't read lips yet? So web grants, is that the website, webgrants.com?
SCPRTgrants.com.
Okay.
It is the web grants program created by Dulles Technology. And we are inside, PRT has graciously agreed to let us live within their grant program. So as you're looking at applying for copying your grant to apply for another grant, you'll see other grant programs from PRT in there. And when you register, make sure that it says area that you want to apply, your concentration, I think it says, make sure that you're selecting the South Carolina American Revolution Sesquicentennial Commission. That way that request to be added to the system comes to me, and I know that you're in there and I can make sure you're added to the correct organization when you do that. The other thing when you go to register, if you're not already registered, is to make sure that you mark yourself as an individual, even if you are representing an organization, because it will require, well, if you know your organization's EIN number, go ahead and do that. But if you don't know your EIN number, you'll have to choose individual, and then it will bypass the request for the EIN number.
Okay.
When it looks at type of organization, make sure you say individual. And then once we get in the system and I add you to the organization that's already in the system, it should have the EIN number in that organization already.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that when you apply to join the web grants program, it does require me to approve it just so we don't have duplicates. That's the reason that goes that way.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I'm making a lot of adjustments on different grant websites as the entity administrator. unfortunately. But anyways, thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Yes, ma'am.
Um, Heather, I went to that website and it sent me to Discover South Carolina, South Carolina Department of Parks and Recreation and Tourism.
Well, let me share my screen and we'll see if
Okay.
we can get there. All right. Give me 1 second. Let me escape out of this and pull up my browser. Okay. Okay, can y'all can see me now? Okay. All right, instead of clicking on my bookmark, I'm gonna see, all right, SCPRTgrants.com.
Oh,
So it does say Discover South Carolina, which is the marketing theme for South Carolina's PRT department, Parks, Recreation, and Tourism Department. So it will say this at the top, but this is the correct location. You're in the right place. And then here's where you would click to register. And as I mentioned, make sure if you do not know your EIN number for your organization, make sure you choose individual here, and it takes away that requirement for the EIN number. And as program area of interest, make sure, see there's lots of them in here, so make sure that you are selecting South Carolina American Revolution Sesquicentennial Commission. And yeah, so that should help you. Then I see that you registered, then I'll make sure you're connected to the right organization that we already have in the system. Okay. All right, so let me go back and log in. Did that answer all the questions for registering for everybody? Okay, excellent.
Heather, who
Yes.
needs to register?
So the only people who would need to register would be people who just want to stay in the loop for their organization, or really people who have to complete these status reports. We're about to do one together. So if you need to be the person doing the status report, doing the final report, or uploading attachments, if you're the financial person who's going to scan all the receipts and wants to be able to log in and upload, you can collaborate that way. More than one person can work on the document. Just make sure that you're not in there at the same time, because it does not auto save. You want to make sure you're always saving and not both in the system at the same time.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Yes, ma'am, Miss Karen.
Heather, can I share my username and password with my team, or should they create their own?
I think it's probably best that they create their own, but I don't have a problem with it if you trust them. So that's up to y'all. I assume you trust them. That's your team. So there you go. All right. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the status reports. So you've signed in, and you have on the left here is the grants tab. Now I have a bunch of them in here that I have under my user, but you will probably have one or two at the most, however many you've completed. And I'm going to go down and see, a lot of these are actually other people's grants that I am simply listed as a secondary applicant, and that's how we can add the additional people to your group. But I'm going to go in, let's see which one I'm going to do. I'm going to go into this one here. Once you click on select your grant, you see your grant components. Everybody signed into the contract to sign the contracts. And now we're just going one step below that to the status report. So here is one that is already in the system. So we're going to pretend like there's not one already in here, but I'm going to add a new status report. And you, by the way, could do multiple status reports if things change along the way. The first thing you have to select is it a semi-annual report or a final report? Anything that's not the final report, make sure that you're selecting semi-annual report. And you can give it a title. I like to do this is going to be my November status update. You could name it whatever you really want to, as long as it has status update or final report in the title. And somebody else have a question? Okay. The report dates, this is for the time period for which you are reporting. So typically it's going to be from the beginning of the fiscal year, which is July 1 from the date that you receive the grant to the date that you do your report. Typically November 1st. But again, if you need to get in there earlier and you'll say, this is the date I'm submitting this report, that's fine. So just, this is the time period for which you're reporting. And I'm going to save my form. And just like our application, we now have a list of components. This is our general information form we just completed. Now I'm going to click on the SC250 status report. And there's 3 questions. Scope of work. So, for example, this one is going to be this grant, let's say, is for a county organizing grant, and they're going to bring in a strategic planner to do the scope of this work. So the scope of work to this date might be date for the planning session has been set and invitations sent. Consultant hired, and pre-planning in progress. And that's what we've completed up to this point. And we could probably say list of stakeholders expanded using inclusive and skill set recommendations. Okay. And then the measurement of success. How far have you gotten on these those deliverables? All the grants had to have a defined deliverable. So, for example, this was probably the deliverable for a planning session would probably be the final report. So you would say that the agreement with consultant includes final report with timetable and action items. So you've set in motion for that final deliverable to be ready when you're done with your grant process. And then your challenges. So we can say exciting list of stakeholders. Then you could say your challenges have been cost of the consultant more than estimate. And so successes and challenges. So that's really as much as you need for those updates. So I've completed those questions. The other thing I need to do is make sure I scroll down to find the documentation. So I'm going to add a new attachment. And my new attachment might be, I'm just going to pick anything right now. Pretend that says that this is the list of stakeholders. And I'm going to save that file. So I might also attach my agreement with my consultant. I might also attach the invitation that was sent out for the event. So anything that you think is relevant that you can go ahead and load into this, you can clone these reports. So when you go to do your final report, all of this could still be attached when you get ready for that. So we've done our questions, we've added our attachments. You can pick either one of these, mark as complete, just like we did with our application. And once we have check marks on both of these things, we can submit our status report. And once I hit this red button, I can't make changes. So make sure before you hit this button, you've made all the changes, uploaded everything that you needed to. Because you could have one person maybe from your group filling out the questions and the finance person's coming in later and adding the attachments, which the receipts that have already been spent to this point. So it really could be two people working on it. Just make sure the final submit is at the end. And there we go. And you can always come back to your status report and see the submitted report, and it has everything here. And you noticed on this other one that I've previously done, it says correcting. What does that mean? That means that it has been submitted to SC250, and I had some questions. So what they call in the system, negotiated, which means I opened up a section and said, could you explain more about this section? And you would get an email to that effect, and you would log in, and that section would now be unlocked so that you could make changes. So on my dashboard, let's see, it should be up here. Yeah, so here it is under negotiations on my dashboard. Again, you should get an email, but you can also log in and see it here. This is where it has opened it up for me, and I can make changes. I now have an edit status report, and I can go in under the status report and make changes to my status report based on the questions that I sent back to you guys. Does that make sense? Anybody have any questions about the status reports?
Hey, Franny and I were just looking at ours and see it's in edit status, but neither one of us were logged in it. So is it just going to stay in edit status until you start turning in status reports, or?
When you say edit status, where are you seeing edit status? 'Cause
Under
there's
the
several different
status
status things.
report option, it says, it lists the report that we have, and then it says editing. So where yours basically says connecting or whatever, so the previous screen when it lists the status reports. Right there, it says editing instead of like it just says editing in yellow.
I tell you what, let's go ahead and I'll finish the rest of the demo, and we can stay on at the end, and I will
Okay.
pull it up, and you can share your screen, and then we can see what's going on. It may be in my many times of going in and practicing with status reports, I may have accidentally clicked on y'all, so
Oh, that's
we
good.
can take a look at that. But that's more than likely, it means that somebody's already started a status report.
Okay.
So it may have been me, so I apologize. We'll look at that before we end up. All right, so the other thing, anybody else have questions with the status report before I show you how to ask for a change in your grant budget or scope or in your grant timeline? Okay, all right, well, you do the same thing. You would get back into your grant, and let's see, this one. Nope, I don't. Okay. So as you see, I went to the same grant components, and right below status reports, it says contract amendments. Be careful not to click back on contracts. Make sure you're on the amendments one. And just like the status report, I'm going to add an amendment. And in this general information page, you have 3 things that you can choose. I need to change. Now, I'm not going to be able to change the amount you were given, but I can change where it's allocated. So you can do a budget revision, a project revision. You run out of money, you're not going to be able to do everything that you said was going to be a part of the scope, so you need to adjust that. That's your project revisions. That's about the deliverables. And then the contract extensions is, I told you my timeline was going to be done here, but we've got a problem with the contractor, or we can't get together until, the new fiscal year. I need an extension. Again, probably not going to be a problem at all. It's just this communication helps us stay on top of that and make sure that I have everything documented when it comes to the auditors at the end of the fiscal year. So go ahead and pick whichever one you want. this is gonna be, I'm gonna have a title. I'm moving funds from marketing that I said I was gonna spend on marketing, and I'm gonna move it into the consultant contract because it was we went with somebody we thought had more skills and they're a little more expensive, so we're going to spend all the money on the consultant for the planning. So I'm gonna save that form. Once again, you just come down here to your components, and now I'm gonna click on my amendment form, and I'm gonna say, when final consultant quotes were received, I really can't spell today. It's received, the amount exceeded the estimate, would like to move marketing funds into the consultant category and eliminate marketing from scope. All right, so this is your request, and you're going to save your form. And then I would probably add an attachment, I would probably add the consultant's contract that you have showing the amount that they're costing you now. And you could be more specific, especially with the budgets. It would be great if you could be more specific on dollar amounts you would like to move around in your justification. And in justification, it might be good to say, we went with this person because they are known to be have a great reputation, in the community, and are known for being inclusive and leading those conversations. So he or she is an expert in that, and so that could be part of your justification. So anything that you want to include about the justification for changes and any specifics you can give us for the amount would be great. Attach anything that you want to attach. Mark it as complete. Submit your amendment, and then you'll get a response back from me saying everything's cool, we've got it updated in the system, or I'll send back a negotiation saying, I have a question about this, can you attach this, and then we can move forward going that way. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. And the last thing I wanted to cover is applications. So I'm going to go to funding opportunities. I'm so excited to see this. They're all posted. Woohoo! So we are at 9 grants now, folks. We are very excited about this. There's a lot of potential to make a difference. Again, education and cultural tourism into the future with these opportunities. So now that you have everything in the system, you can now take that grant application and apply for something else. So I'm going to apply for a local activities grant. And instead of hitting start new application, I'm going to copy an existing application. And I've been busy, so you probably won't have this many applications to copy. But you can pick one of these and copy the application. And now your general information you probably want to review just to make sure it's, and you'll want to update it, go in and edit it. So you'll want to make sure you change the application title to the local seminars or whatever you want to change it to. And here's where you can add additional applicants. So if we've added new people to your group, then you can add them to your additional applicants. And every time an update from the system goes out, it'll also go to that additional applicant. And I'm going to save my form. No, I'm thinking about it. Okay. So don't forget to review that general information and update the title, but it is now complete. You'll see, we'll go to support materials, for example, they're already here. So all I have to do is make sure nothing's been updated, and I mark it as complete. I go to my assurances and certifications. Same people, John Lawrence is going to sign this one too. So I'm going to mark as complete. And now and cover sheet, I'm going to go in, and there are some additional questions here that you'll have to fill out. Yes, I'm located in South Carolina. Yes, it's going to pertain to the American Revolution. This just keeps people who find these grants online who are not in our state for understanding of the parameters. And you're going to be a County 250 committee, pick your applicant type. That's the same as before. And then we have, and go, let's see. So because we have made some changes, you may have to fill some of this out again. I apologize for that. It looks like because we've made some updates to that, once you do a competitive grant, you will then have this financial information should be the same going forward. Save. Let me save it. And then of course you'll have to update your narrative because you're talking about a new application. So you will have to fill this part out. And this is something that since these are competitive, the commission is interested in two factors that they will be just a part of what they consider when we decide who gets what money. One of them is how many battles and skirmishes took place in your county. And the only reason we even consider this is because Charleston has 96 events that are listed on the list, and I have 3 in some other county. So based on that, we put the groups into the counties into tiers based on the number of events that they had in their area. So when I put Charleston in, it's going to make it tier 4 because they have more events that took place. So the drop down should populate. You do have to select it, but it should populate once you put in your county. The other thing that will happen when I hit save, the Department of Revenue has a tax job credit ranking, and this allows folks to say, okay, this based on the cost of living in your community and average income, it says this group over here really needs more help in creating economic development. And since we think this cultural tourism is a big part of economic development, we're using that same job credit ranking tier as just a component of our conversation as we decide who gets these grants. And this hopefully will help spread the wealth in the state where it's most needed. And then that will automatically populate. So you don't have to, once you put in your county, that will come up in just a moment. And prior funding, you all will have to say yes here. And this just puts it all on the same sheet. So if you would put in how much you got, and it was for strategic planning or whatever it was for, and save your form. So, and the rest are the same questions that we had before, very similar in the competitive grants. But again, as you see, this tax, Charleston is in 1, which means it's more prosperous and doesn't need as much economic assistance as some other counties. So these are components that we'll consider as we take a look at who gets the funding for this year. The next deadline for applications is September 16th. There are 4 this fiscal year, so don't stress if you can't get it in by then. We have all of that went out yesterday with our e-news. And I will remind you that you can go to our website, southcarolina250.com, is where you can find a lot of this information. And I'm going to move this so I can get to my... There is a grant recipient guidance, which is under SC250 grants. So if you need help with any of that, you can go there. Or just go to the SC, let's see, there it goes. Okay, so this is basically what we talked about today, and I'm going to upload shortly the step-by-steps on doing your reports will be under this section down here. So if you need assistance when you get ready to do them, you can find that. Also, if you want to apply for an additional grant, there's information about all the grants listed here. So there's lots of information on our website. And and of course, again, I remind you, we are here to help. please let us know how we can help you. And thank you for understanding the paperwork that is involved with state funding and making sure we're dotting our I's and crossing our T's. Any questions? Well, I did a great job then, so nobody has questions. How's everybody
For
feeling?
hosting this. Thank you for hosting this, Heather. It really helps.
Of
And
course.
when will the grant recipient guidance part be available if we have additional questions? Go back to.
So this is already on our website. The page, it's under SC250 grants. There is a grant recipient guidance that covers basically what we talked about today. It's already on our website. I will be adding a step-by-step on filling out the status reports and a step-by-step on making budget or timeline amendments, hopefully by the end of the day. And that's when I'll send that to you guys in a follow-up email as well. And I'll include, hopefully if we can get it to work right, I'll be able to send you the copy of today's webinar too, if you need to share it with any of your compatriots.
Be great.
Heather, how do you feel we're doing getting various counties to get started?
Great question. You guys, those of you who are counties on this list, thank you. You are the trailblazers. We had 7 who got grants this past year. We are at 22 with the county resolutions, which is great. So I'm going to be in the next, now that all this is kind of set up, I'm in the next week or so, I'm going to be working with all those who have resolutions who have not submitted their grant yet. So we're making progress. Every single county in the state we've made contact with. So we have a contact person for every county. Not all of them have full committees yet. And ironically, it's a lot of the larger cities that one, aren't hungry for $3,000 because they've got money, and also there are a lot of historical groups and a lot of entities. So if you guys have any inroads, I know some of y'all live here in Columbia. We're close to going with our Lexington group soon, but I know Richland is a struggle because it's a lot of folks who are very busy, and trying to bring all those entities together is a challenge, but we think there's a lot of potential in these larger cities too. So
Right.
So does the 22 that have resolutions, is that included in the 7 that have grants
Yes.
are included in those 22?
yes, that is correct. Yeah.
Well, Heather, this email from Tuesday that has the download the 250 grants basic sheet, that is what I wanted, girlfriend. That's the one we talked about at lunch, that we said we need just a quick overview of each grant, of what's the dollars, what's the eligibility. Just perfect. Thank you so much. Really useful tool. Y'all take a look at it. It'll really help you.
We're hoping to get the word out. Molly speaks tomorrow morning to the Association of Counties. So they're having their conference this week. So she's getting some time in front of all of them tomorrow, which is great. And they all got a copy of this. If you guys, it's available on our website as well. Again, on the SC250 grants tab, you can click on and download this sheet as well. It's double-sided, but it lists all of the grants. If there's a match required, because we do have some of these competitive ones do require a match. So keep that in mind as you look at it. It also lists the deadlines for the 4 quarters. We'll be reviewing grants over the next 4 quarters. So. Questions, concerns?
Thank you so much.
Oh,
You worked
thank you
so hard
guys.
on these grants.
You guys are doing the good work. We just want to make it happen, and I'm here to try to figure out how to make it work with state funding. So, but all right, guys.
Thank you.
Good luck with everything. Stay in communication with us, and we look forward to the success that you all have.
Thanks.
Thank you.
You.
Thank you.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
guys.